Hi everyone, I'm Mishka and welcome back to my channel. In today's episode of Our Life Beginnings and Always, we are going to be doing moment 4 of step 2 today, called dinner. But before we get into it, make sure to hit the subscribe button and share with your friends so then they can find out my amazing channel just like you have right now. So yeah, let's get into it and I hope you enjoy. So yeah, go there. Alright. That last video was so depressing. I'm like still trying to recover from it, but yeah. Sunlight shone through the windows as you sat in your living room, your home phone pressed to your ear. Cove was on the other end. It's been shaping up to be an ordinary day like any other until Cove had called unexpectedly. He sounded unusually nervous greeting you. You listened silently as he kept talking, his words stilted. So, I was just wondering, do you want to come over to my house for dinner tonight? The question had come out strangely, almost like he'd rehearsed it a few times beforehand. Your eyes widened a little. You hadn't expected this to be the reason behind the call. You kept listening. Cove continued. His next words sounded rehearsed too, and tinged with nervousness. Mom and Dad, they really want you to be there. If your parents don't have a problem with it, they asked me to ask you. You took a moment to think. Dinner at home would be quiet and uneventful today. If you really wanted to, you could go to Cove's instead. Cove spoke up again, breaking your thought train. His voice was softer than before. Also, I want you to be there too. Can you come over, I mean? Yeah, I can come. Thanks, Mina. I'll let them know when I can. He sounded noticeably relieved by your response. Was you coming over for dinner today that serious? He spoke to you for a little while longer to explain what time to come over and other details and hung up. And that was it for now. Anyway. Soon enough, the sun dipped out of the sky and evening came. It was time for you to head to Cove's house. After letting Elizabeth know you were leaving, she didn't look away from the TV, just grunted. You made the small journey across the street. You knocked a couple of times on the heavy door to their condo. As you waited for an answer, you found yourself contemplating being a guest while both of Cove's parents were there. You were apprehensive. I don't really know. You didn't know what to expect from this dinner party. You didn't get too much time with your thoughts, though. The door opened soon enough. Cove's mom, Kira, stood in the frame, smiling warmly at you.
Come on.
Hey, Amina. Come on. Welcome. Please come on in. Jeez. She opened the door wider and moved to make room. I cannot talk. Ugh. You stepped inside, allowing her to shut it behind you. Thanks so much for coming over. I know it was kind of last second. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Of course. Just make yourself at home. It's not my home, but I've been given permission to say that. Hey Mina, welcome to our humble abode. You jerked your head towards the sound of Mr. Holden's voice. He waved at you briefly from the kitchen with his back turned and a large spoon in hand. Hope you're hungry because I'm whipping up a lot of tasty stuff. True to his word, you heard something swizzling on the stove. You closed your eyes and inhaled. It smells spicy and savory. With Mr. Holden busy and Cove nowhere to be seen, it was just you and Kira. She gave you a wary smile. He sure is. While I've been barred from cooking the entire time I'm staying here, can you believe that? She nudged you with an elbow. Mr. Holden scoffed good-naturedly and spoke from over his shoulder. You're on vacation, Kira. You need to accept that already. She yelled back, amusement obvious and on her face and in her tone. People still cook when they're on vacation. Everyone's got to eat. It's not like I'm some celebrity who can go out for every meal or hire a private chef.
Sorry.
Well, in this house, you're a VIP. Kira smiled and shook her head quietly. Then she turned to face you once more.
Wow.
Sorry about that, Mina. Here I was trying to strike up a conversation with you and Cliff just had to butt in. I don't butt in. She eyed him, chuckling in disbelief. He wasn't exactly disapproving her point with that. Kira leaned over to whisper to you. It's okay. He likes to be included, but since Clifford insisted on cooking all by himself, he'll have to wait. The two of us can chat. Her next question continued to be in a hushed tone just to be safe. So how are you doing? I'm doing good. That's what I like to hear. She opened her mouth to say something more, but some lightly pounding footsteps caught your attention. Hello, Cove. You checked to see Cove emerge from the hall a few minutes later. He might have heard all the commotion and left his room to see what was going on. He quickly took stock of the situation. His cheeks turned pink at the sight of you standing in his living room, and his hand came up to rub his arm almost bashfully. Mina, you made it! Thanks for coming! Cove's voice is unnaturally loud, as if he thought you wouldn't be able to hear him from where you were, only a few feet away. Hi, Cove. Are you doing okay? Yeah, I'm fine. He didn't sound convincing at all. You narrowed your eyes suspiciously, but didn't call him out on it. If you could talk to him alone tonight, maybe you'd ask him what was going on then. It was when you glanced away from Cove that you spotted his parents watching the two of you in a round. Cove noticed their stares too, meeting them with narrowed eyes. Are we having dinner now? Not yet, bud. I'm still cooking. Alright, I'm gonna go back to my room. As he turned to leave, he bent his head to the side to face you. You coming? The question was quiet, but you heard it clearly. You smiled, pleased that he asked, and nodded in the affirmative. Cove turned fully and made his way down the hall. Have fun, you two. We'll call you when the food's ready to go. With that, you followed after Cove. The two of you made your way down the hall. Cove got to the door first, opening it, and stepping inside, you joined him. There was a mat on the floor in front of the door. As you stepped over the threshold into his room, you felt the crunch of sand beneath your feet. The sensation was nothing new to you, of course. Cove constantly came back to his room covered in sand, not bothering to clean himself off at the front door, and got it all over his personal space. That's just how he was, a little bit of a mess. You hadn't heard Mr. Holden ever scold him for it, though, not like your moms would have if you'd done it. You can sit wherever you want. Cove himself took a seat at the edge of his large bed, looking like the picture of comfort, and left you to decide. Jesus. Sit next to Cove. Oh, great. Why are you blushing? As soon as you sat next to him, Cove grew tense. His back went stiff and he ducked his head away. He tried to hide a trembling smile. Oh, Cove is so cute.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. He said it under his breath as if he didn't want you to hear it. You obviously did, and easily since you were right beside him. You chuckled over it. He raised his eyebrows. You both kept noticing the other's every move. It's nothing. Don't worry about it. Okay. Cove didn't seem convinced, but he nodded, shifting nervously on the bed. He pointedly glanced away from you, the tips of his ears red. With the silence growing, your gaze began to drift. You stared at the bright fish swimming in the tank. There were a bunch of them, floating to and fro in the open space. They stood out starkly against the green aquarium plants. How long have you had those fish?
I guess.
Oh.
Yes.
My dad bought them for me, not very long after I moved here. I guess it's been years now. Wow, that's a long time. You peered carefully into the tank. The fish looked to be doing well. He must take good care of them. Most of them were small, but there was one especially big one. What are their names? I don't name them. Well, not really. He lifted an eyebrow at that. He continued the explanation sheepishly.
I mean...
Mostly, I just call them things based on what they look like. Squirt for a small one. Tangerine for a really orange one. That sort of thing. I've had a lot of fish, and I'm not that good at coming up with names. I found that funny. He knew that was a weakness of his. It was an entertaining revelation. Oh, a couple of them have other types of names. He pointed to a small orangish red fish. It was minding its own business away from the others. My dad named her Dreamcatcher, and that other one's Mark. Mom came up with that one. Cove smiled to himself, his eyes reflecting the glow from the tank. You let other people name your fish?
It's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. He then turned to you, tilting his head to the side. There was a considering look on his face. Do you want to name one? Yeah, I do, actually. Yeah, oh my god, that sounds so much fun, though. His smile grew a little at your enthusiasm. Cool. There's a few who don't have names right now, the newer ones. You can pick which one you want to name. He pointed each of the recent accusations out to you. The first one was the smallest fish in the tank. It was completely orange and zipped all over the place, running laps around others. The second one was slightly bigger and red. Its tail was dotted with black spots which almost resembled freckles. The last fish was the biggest one. Its multicolored scales rippled under the bright light of the tank as it slowly made its way across the vast expanse. You went with, I want to go with the smallest one. Yeah, smallest one. I want to name it Flash. Wait. Cove only nodded at your answer, waiting on you to decide on a suitable name. You watched the fish you chose closely. As you did, a name eventually came to you. Type in your own answer. Type in a name. Flashy. Oh, I like that name. Alright, it's Flashy. With that, his attention moved from you to the tank. He peered fondly at it and its inhabitants. You smiled proudly at Flashy as it swam through the tendrils of plants, disappearing then reappearing soon after. You noticed then that Cove was sitting closer to you than he was before. He must have scooted over at some point during the conversation. This close, your shoulders were almost brushing against each other. Your heartbeats picked up a little at the realization. You know, I'm not allowed to have pets in my house, not even fish. The corners of Cove's lips turned down at that. That doesn't sound fair. It's not like fish would make a mess of your house or anything. You just gotta take care of their tank and feed them and they'll be okay. Right? My mom can be strict over the weirdest things sometimes. They trust Elizabeth and me to go around the neighborhood alone, but they won't let us have a pet. It doesn't make sense. Maybe when you're even older they'll let you? I don't know, they seem pretty against it. Your current conversation brought to mind a memory from years ago. You launched into it without any warning, earning you a brief, confused look from Cove. One time Elizabeth came back from playing at the beach and just shut herself in her room. She only came down for food and then ran back upstairs straight after. It was kind of weird. My mom didn't think much of it at first, though. But then that night, Mom went up to her room to say goodnight and started screaming. Mom and I ran over to see what happened. Lizzie had this huge lizard in her arms. Cove's eyebrows rose at that. He leaned forward in interest.
Really?
A lizard? Where did that come from? Elizabeth said she saw it half buried in the sand and didn't know what it was. Then she pulled it out and got the answer, so she brought it home. She hid the lizard in her room for most of the day because she wanted to keep it. Mom and Ma were not happy. They worried about putting it out during the night, so she was going to have to let it go in the morning. Lizzie was really upset. She did bring it back to the beach eventually, but she wouldn't talk to anyone for days. When she did get over it, it was almost like it never happened. You laughed, thinking back to that time. Elizabeth had always been stubborn, but when she was younger, she forgot grudges quickly. Now it wasn't so easy. Ugh. Sorry, everyone, I need to drink real quick. It's 3:45. Wow. Okay. Cove had been quiet for most of the story, apart from the reveal of the lizard. He had a thoughtful look on his face. I can't even imagine what it'd be like to have a sibling. You gave serious thought to his statement before you told him. You're lucky to be an only child. It's terrible having a sibling, especially if you're the youngest. Elizabeth tells me what to do all the time and says I have to do it because she's older. Cove pursed his lips at the words, considering them quietly for a while.
Cool.
That's interesting. I think your family is cool. He didn't have much else to say, though while on the topic of your family, you considered your relationships with your moms too. You got along with your moms. You had disagreements with them, but at the end of the day, you loved them and they loved you. That was what really mattered. Well, say what you want about them, but at least your moms never tried to pay someone to be your friend. Oh God. The thought prompted you to look over at Cove. He probably still didn't know that happened. Don't tell him! You doubted that Mr. Holm mentioned it and you never had. You wondered if you should tell him. It was a long time ago, but you were keeping a secret from Cove. I don't know. No, it's a bad time. You could bring it up some other day when the moment was right. Time passed, but you didn't really notice. The two of you were busy making plans for the rest of the summer and chatting about your respective days. Eventually, you heard a muffled holler from a different part of the house. You and Cove raised your heads in unison.
Oh.
It's time for dinner. Cove watched the firmly shut door he had locked behind for most of the night, but he didn't make a move to get up from the bed. You couldn't see his face, so you didn't know what expression he was wearing. I'm glad you came. Cove peeked at you from the side. It's been awkward. I get that. It's been hard on you, huh? You felt sympathetic towards him. You didn't know what he was going through, but you cared about him. Cove said nothing else and remained sat where he was. Now would be as good a time as any to ask him why his parents so suddenly wanted you to come over. Is there any reason they wanted me to come over tonight? It hadn't been awkward for just me. Sometimes it get like this when no one else is around, but now you're here. Huh, you hadn't even considered that, but it sort of made sense in a way. There was another shout from outside, too muffled to actually know the words, but you could imagine what they were. Let's go. Cove finally got up, lumbering away with his shoulders sagged. You followed after him. Together, the two of you made your way back to the living room. Oh, hello! As you expected, Cove's parents were politely waiting for you at the kitchen table, beside the windows overlooking the back of the house. Food had been prepared and set. Mr. Holden beamed as you and Cove took your places. I hope everyone's hungry. I've cooked up a feast.
Yeah.
I know I am. Yeah. Cove's normal response wasn't nearly as upbeat as theirs. His parents didn't notice, or they pretended not to. Mr. Holden instead looked at you, grinning.
Thanks.
Let's all just take a moment to thank our special guest for being us with here tonight. I'm so glad you're able to make it, Mina, and on such short notice too. You thank Cove's parents. I'm happy to be here. Thank you both for inviting me.
All right.
Well, that's it. Everyone, please dig in. You can help yourselves to the food. Upon his encouragement, you looked over the meal spread out in front of you. There was a large garden salad in the center, surrounded by a variety of Mexican dishes. There were a lot of sides and optional sauces to add. You were very happy about these options. You love Mexican food, and there were so many dishes to choose from. You were practically drooling. Ew. Utensils and plates scrapped and clinked together as the group began filling their plates. Cliff, could you please pass the salsa verde? Of course.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let me just say, you really outdid yourself tonight. I'm so jealous. Jealous of what? Your cooking's nothing to sneeze at, Kira. Cove's parents made small talk, filling the silence with what seemed to be barely any effort. You chimed in as well. Did it take you a long time to cook all this, Mr. Holden? Oh, not at all. Sure, this is more than I usually make for me and Cove, but I enjoyed every second of it.
Aha.
Might have gone faster if you had some help, though. Cove's mom grumbled, but it was lighthearted. Mr. Holden chuckled and shook his head. Not this again. I make the rules here, and I say guests don't cook. Even when they're staying for literal weeks.
Come on.
Even then. Everything looks great, Dad, as always. Thanks, sport. Glad you think so. Cove smiled and was genuine, even if it was strained at the corners. Whew. Brief silences interspersed the small talk. You paused some food on your plate, waiting for your turn if someone was serving themselves a dish that you had your eye on. Once the food had been divided and things settled down, Cove's parents started talking again. Now then. You sat up in your seat when you noticed they were both looking at you.
How's it going?
How has everything been over at your house? Are your moms well? You've been keeping busy this summer, or maybe you're just trying to take it easy during the break? You were more than happy to answer. Cove's parents seemed honestly interested to hear from you. You were kind of flattered by the attention. Tell them how your moms are doing. My moms are great. Mom took us out for dessert a couple weeks ago since her project went really well. Is that so? I'll have to congratulate her when I see her. You answered how things were at your house. It's alright. Elizabeth's been home more lately since her best friend is on vacation with her family. She keeps hogging the TV remote and the phone and anything else she can. Though it's not too bad. You mentioned things you've done this summer. You shouldn't know what I've been up to since so much has included your family. Mr. Holden laughed loud and short. You caught him off guard with that. A fair point. And that was that for your answer. For your question answering. Kira nodded along. You could tell she was actually listening to the words you were saying. She was trying to include you, not humor you. Did you know, Cliff, Media is really into art? Mr. Holden's face lit up, and he stopped eating so he could lean forward, his arms braced against the table.
Nice one.
Oh, that's right. Very cool. I'm pretty serious about it. You are at such a young age. That's really impressive. If you keep putting in the time, I'm sure you can do something great. Thanks. Cove's parents were definitely the encouraging type, but you could already tell that much about them. There was a long conversation as everyone focused their attention on their respective plates. You noted, not for the first time, that Cove's parents were the ones guiding the conversation. You wondered if you should break the silence. No, girl, you leaving them. You're leaving it up to them. Mr. Holden was the one who spoke, glancing at his son before turning to you with an easy grin. Speaking of hobbies, Cove has been hitting the books hard. He keeps telling me all kinds of things I've never heard of. You had already known that since Cove is so open with you, but it was interesting to hear his parents' perspective on it. The rest of the dinner continued just like that, with light conversation as you ate your meals. Eventually, all the dishes on the kitchen table were pretty much gone. Kira set down her fork and rested her onto her side, letting loose a satisfied sigh. Her plate was completely empty.
Nice.
Oh, wow. Sorry, everyone. I need a drink. That was delish. Thank you for your culinary creations, Cliff. Mr. Holden was like a flower soaking up the rays of the sun. He beamed, flattered by the praise. Aww. You ate way too much. You practically licked your plate clean. You were so full that you were afraid that you might burst. Cove successfully kept his present to a minimum for the full meal. He was slumped over, even now toying with his silverware. His parents practically only talked to you. Most attempts to entice him to join the conversation failed. It wasn't typical for him to say so little. He at least tried to participate. You didn't get much time to contemplate Cove's situation because your attention was taken by Mr. Holden pointedly clearing his voice. Not to sound like a broken record, but thanks for coming, Vina. I'm glad we finally got the chance to have you over for a real dinner.
What?
What? Did I hear that right? This is the first time Mina has ever had dinner here? Why in the world have you invited over her sooner? Cove was always the one going over to Mina's house until now. I mean, how was I supposed to reject the generous offers of the Rose family to host my kid? Kira shook her head, but the amused smile she was sporting told you that she wasn't actually mad. This guy, honestly. The three of you looked at Cove in unison, his small sound being more than enough to get the focus on him after his silence. By now, he stopped fiddling with his fork.
I mean...
Would it be alright for me to stay over, like, for the night? Oh, no, we're good. We're good. We're good, Cove. We're good, Cove. He shot you a shy glance, then smiling a little. If you're cool with that. Mr. Holden's shoulders stiffened. He sat up straighter, eyes darting back and forth between you and Cove. His mouth opened, but not a peep came out. You'd never seen Cove's dad say no to him before, but this was different than the usual request. It wasn't so simple, and Mr. Holden was lost. Then Cove's mom reached out and took a hold of his shirt collar. She pulled him closer. She glanced at you before leaning in and bringing a hand up in front of their faces. The two adults whispered seriously to each other. Cove's eyes opened wider. He leaned forward as if that would help him overhear his parents' conversation. Mr. Holden kept gesturing with his hands while Kira made sure he didn't get too far away with all his movements. Every now and then, both of them would watch you and Cove out of the corner of their eyes. It didn't seem like they were fighting to you. They looked more like some kind of tiny sports team having a private huddle. After a bit, they broke the powwow. They moved back to sit properly in their chairs. He snuck a look at Cove. He stared at them expectantly. You were eager to hear their verdict, too. Kira and I think that should be fine, but... He lifted a finger dramatically, his brows raising as he met Cove's gaze and then your own. We'll have to talk with Mina's parents to make sure they be comfortable with it. If they are, we can arrange for a sleepover to happen on a different night when everyone is more prepared. If Mina's folks don't like the idea, there's nothing we can do. He finished the mini speech with a wide shrug using his full arms. He also checked out Kira from the corner of his eye and gave her a crooked smile. She nodded approvingly and grinned back. You thought you saw her give him a thumbs up. Her hand was partially blocked by the table. They looked so pleased with themselves over the answer, but they just passed the actual decision on whether it was alright or not to someone else, namely your parents. If this was a sports game, they would have punted the ball away. Cove hung his head, deflated. He had been hoping you could stay over today, not some hypothetical time in the future. Psst, I'll sneak the phone into my room tonight. If you get your home phone too, then we can talk, even though I'll be back home. Cove's eyes sparkled at the suggestion. It may or not end up being possible, but it was worth trying. With that, dinner finally came to an end. Mr. Holden stood up from the table and began collecting empty plates. Cove was asked to help out, which he did with a little fuss. Kira tried to lend a hand as well, however, Mr. Holden didn't let her. It seemed she was barred from cleaning as well as cooking. You weren't allowed to chip in either, since you were there as the declared guest of honor. Although the meal was over, the night wasn't. It looked like you weren't going home just yet after all. You were asked to wait on the couch. While Cove and his dad were cleaning up the mess, Kira disappeared down the hall after shooting you a wink. It was a bit strange sitting by yourself, while everyone else had something to do. Luckily, you weren't alone for too long. After a couple of minutes, Cove's mom returned with a deck of cards in hand. She strolled into the room confidently while shuffling. So, who is up for a few rounds? Cove and his dad looked over their shoulders at the question. They were mutually intrigued by the cards in her hands. She beamed at their expressions and stepped further into the living room. Ignoring the couches, she sat cross-legged on the floor by the coffee table. She turned to you and gestured at the space beside her, smiling invitingly. You accepted and followed her lead. The living room carpet was soft, though the hardwood floor underneath could definitely still be felt. Kira did an overhand shuffle while she waited for the others to finish their task. The smile had yet to leave her lips.
Great.
This is going to be good. You were bored. You were interested in playing a card game. This wasn't what you signed up for. It didn't take much longer for Cove and his dad to write things enough to call it good. Cove's dad appeared first, followed closely behind Cove. Mr. Holden rubbed his hands together in anticipation. Alright, I'm ready. As he took a seat across from you on the floor, you noticed Cove hadn't joined him. He went straight down the hall instead without even a word. You stared on confused as he disappeared through his bedroom door. Cove's parents didn't look concerned at the stunt. Clara nonchalantly split the deck of cards into two and riffled the hats together while offering an explanation of sorts. Cove doesn't keep his wallet with him when at home. He puts it away. What? Cove quickly returned to the living room, a black wallet in his hand. He took a place at the foot of the table with the rest of you. You blinked as Cove unzipped his wallet. You all use real money on card games with family? While you sat there, your hands idle on your lap, the three shot looks at one another and sized each other up.
Yeah.
That's right, $5 per round per person. Winner takes all. Go big or go home. What are you planning on? Are you planning on kicking Mina to the curb, or do you intend on donating to the guest of honor's pot, Mr. High Roller? Mr. Holden narrowed his eyes and leaned back against the side of the couch, completely at ease.
No worries.
If Mina wants to play, I'll fund her way in. Don't you worry about that. He rested an arm across the top of the knee that he propped up. Cove's dad was acting slick in a way you'd never seen before. You joke that he shouldn't be so confident. Are you sure? Adding me could be spelling your doom. Right you are, Mina. I hope you can back that attitude up. You know I can, Kira. You can let me pay for Mina. She is my friend. Mr. Holden grinned with a chuckle.
Good kid.
Alright, bud. I concede. You're too polite for me. Well, you've got your ticket. Interested in throwing in? You glanced around. This seemed like serious business. In response to your consternation, Kira softened her competitive smile. Don't worry too much. We'll probably just do some rounds of Go Fish tonight. Go, no biggie.
Do you mind?
What do you think? You joined in. I'd love to play. Mr. Holden gave you a big thumbs up, while Cove nodded firmly back. You were really good at it. You usually won when you played with your own family, to the point Elizabeth refused to play that game with you anymore. Fantastic. We'll play for however long everyone wants to keep going. Or until people start running out of cash, but are still refusing to quit while they're behind. Thinking for yourself, I see. With a laugh, Kira nudged you using an elbow, then motioned towards the other two with her chin. Don't be fooled by their soft faces. These boys are sharks. Oh my god. In reaction to her words, Mr. Holden smirked and Cove's eyebrows became more angled. Kira's phrasing made you think back to when you were young, specifically at Mr. Holden's favorite shark pants that he used to wear all the time. Perhaps they had been a fit for him in ways you didn't know of. You could feel tension in the air. Cove and his parents glued their eyes to one another, then all placed $5 bills on an empty space in front of them. Cove dropped an extra one for you, giving you a tiny smile after he did. Once this was done, Kira began dealing out cards to everybody. It was time to begin. The first round came and went quickly, with the group getting into the groove of things. You won right away, which meant you had the money to keep playing the second round. You're a natural. Nicely done. You better keep those wits about you for the next round, though. As the night went on, so did the games. Mr. Holden would jokingly shake his fist whenever someone other than him got a pair. Kara acted as a news anchor, reporting on every move everyone made by speaking into her curled fists. Cove was still a few words, but now it was because he was focused on the game instead of being overcome with awkwardness. But this time, you even spotted a smile on his lips. You won quite a few games to your delight. You had a hefty money pile on your side of the table. You must regret paying Mina's way in now, huh? No way. Mina might be beating me, but she's also beating you two. Cove turned towards you and smiled, looking pleased to your ability to match his mom and dad. You grinned at him, touched by his speedy comeback. It became clear that where the money went in the moment didn't really matter. They ended up giving back to one another in other ways, and not just through more rounds of cards. You sat back, looking over the scene. A tiny smile grew on your face. Cove's family was pretty cool, you thought. You were glad you got this chance to come over to spend time with the three of them. Oh my god, and that was the moment for... Okay, wow. Ooh. The part in that moment for me was the money. Like, where we could tell Cove if, you know, we got paid to be his friend or not. Did I run away? I don't even remember. Wow, okay. But everyone, that is all for today. But lastly, you're Jen. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye.